What's up everyone, welcome to Kai's channel. Today we'll be reviewing this ThreeZero's Roboto EVA Unit 02. Now I know that I'm reviewing this without actually properly reviewing the Unit 1. That's because I thought I pre-ordered it, but actually I didn't. And now I have ordered it on the second batch, which should be coming out in a month or two. So we'll definitely come back to the Unit 1 later. So without wasting any more time, let's get started on this. So just like with any new series in this channel, we'll quickly go through the box first and then we'll unbox it afterwards. So just like you see a little earlier, you got this really nice box art in the front with somewhat a nice line art that's on top of it. And obviously you can tell that this is actually modeled after the movie version instead of the TV version. As you can see, the head of the Unit 2, it's the one with the horn. And then on the sides, there's some text on it. Nothing much there. On the back, it's very simple. You got this Nerf logo with a hidden Unit 2 on the back. Same for the other side. Nothing much. But then there's a really neat gimmicks here, which is the cover can be open. That's actually locked it by a little Velcro on the sides right here. And then you got this nice Unit 2 art on the back of the cover. And obviously you can see through it with all the Unit 2 components inside, which looks really nice. Alright, let's unbox this. So coming right out of the box is the first layer. Now the first layer you can see right in front of you in the dead center is the Unit 2 itself. That looks like it's frozen in time with all the plastic wrap around it. And then on the two sides are the interchangeable shoulder parts, and then underneath that are the two pellet rifles, and underneath that are these parts that is interchangeable on the little section underneath the arms. And then you got the different hands that you can change into, and on the left side you got is the thunder spear, and on the right side it's the crossbow that the Unit 2 used, and finally on the bottom you got the two progressive knife. And lastly are the two entry plugs that you can see in different sizes, which we'll get into much details later. And that's it with the first layer. And here is the second and also the last layer, which you can see on the top is the base of the display stand. And underneath that is the adjustable supporting arm. And the bottom are the two different types of power plugs. And finally on the right side, this long brown tube is the umbilical cord, which most likely you can put it into those plugs for displaying. Alright, let's take them out and check it out. So here it is, the Unit 02. So far it's actually looking really great. But before we go into details on how it is, I just want to go through the size of it for those of you who wish to know. And here we have, it's the metal build 02 as well. As you can see, it's actually a couple heads taller than the metal builds. And obviously, aside from that, you can see that both of the design is actually really different. The ThreeZero's approach is actually going through nearly exactly the same as the anime version. So that's why there's not much as details and decals as the metal build. Alright, let's take a look into details on the coloring and also the gimmicks. To start off, the paint is actually pretty amazing. All of them it's actually on a semi-matte coloring. You can see that you have the red, that's all over the body, and then the two shoulders are black, followed by the arms are white, which is exactly the same color scheme that they use in the movie version, which is really nice. And you can tell by the horns on the head as well. Now aside from the coloring, there are actually some details that I really like about this piece, which are these holes that you can see all around the body. That looks like it's actually bolted the armor in to keep them attached. So it makes it much more realistic being that way. So definitely looking really nice so far. Now aside from the shoulder and also the side of the arms, there are these decals on it that represents the Unit 2. Other than that, there's really no decals on it whatsoever. So they're actually trying to keep the decals as simple as possible, but yet putting details on other aspects. Now in terms of metal components, all of the movable joints are actually metal, but not only that, when I was picking up this piece, I can actually feel that there's a lot more weight on the lower half of the body, meaning that I believe there's actually extra weighting in the thigh and also on the leg that makes up the majority of the weight on the entire piece, so that it actually stands on its own pretty well, unlike the Dyna Action model from Bandai. So although you can't see it, there's quite a bit of metal components in this piece. Alright, let's take a look on the movement. So as for the movement, the head can actually turn, not too much though, only to the side like this, like that, quite limited. But also the head can tilt forward like this, and also there's another section down here that can go even further. And there's actually a reason for that, which I will talk about it later in the gimmicks. Now with the neck forward like this, you can actually tilt the head up quite a bit. As for the arms, there's a ball joint right here, and then it turns 360. It actually bumps into the back a bit, but if you pull it out, then it actually turns normally. So there's actually another ball joint within the shoulder piece right here that you can actually move forward like this, tilt the arm, and then backward. But actually it can tilt upwards as well, but for some reason on mine it's actually stuck really tight. So I'll demonstrate on the other arm instead. So technically you can see it's right here. You can actually move it in, tilt it a bit, and then tilt it back out. And technically you can do the same on the other arm, but again, for some reason mine doesn't work and it's stuck pretty hard like that. Maybe throughout the review it will actually loosen up, but as for now I can't even move it a single bit. As for the elbow, there's actually two joints that you can move, and you can move it all the way up to here like this, and that's the max. As for the hands, you can turn it and it can tilt up and down, and obviously you can change it into different hands that you want. As for the torso, just like any other FS series, you can actually tilt the torso into 3 different sections, and you can see that you can bend pretty well into the front. Not only that, but you can actually tilt it to the side as well. As for the thigh, obviously you can move to the side, but be careful on this here. You can see that it actually will hit on the upper armor, and that will actually cause the paint to scratch. But there's actually a little gimmicks in here that actually prevents that, which is this. As you can see, the thigh here, this little armor piece is touching the joint, but if we pull it downwards like this, as you can see, it actually shifts down a little bit, and this will prevent you from hitting the upper armor when moving the joints, like so. So this is actually pretty neat, so you can actually do quite a bit of movement with this little gimmick, and without having to worry that it will hit the armor and scratch the paint. So that's really nice of ThreeZero to do that. And when you're done, simply just push it back in, and it will look just as good. So really nice there. As for the knees, similar to the arms, there's 2 joints, and you can turn and goes all the way back, touching the thigh. This little knee section can move from the resting position all the way up to here. And then as for the legs, you can rotate And this little ankle guard can move a bit as well. And in the front of the feet can move from the flat position and tilt upwards like that. So movement wise, this is actually pretty agile, so I'm liking it a lot on the movement, especially on the thigh gimmick, which definitely is a bonus on that. So just before we go through the weapons and armaments, I just want to go through the gimmicks on the main body, because there's actually simply not any other than one single gimmicks, which is, as you guessed, is the entry plug on the back. Now in order to get the entry plug to open, first of all you need to pull the head downwards, just like we have shown you before, and then pull this part up. And then tilt this up a little bit, and this front part also tilt it up a little to the front, and then you're ready. And now you can actually just stick the entry plug into the hole. I'm using the long one for this demonstration. And you can see like that, it's sticking out just like when it's trying to exit. And the same goes for the shorter one, which you basically just drop it in like that, and actually see if it's closed. So it actually does contain the shorter one inside the Unit 2. So this is really nice. As for how to get the shorter entry plug out of the hole, you can actually pull it out from the black section that you can see right now, or just simply turn the entire EVA Unit 2 over and drop it out. I think it's easier this way. And that's it with this gimmick. Now in case you're wondering if there's actually any other gimmicks, such as if the head opens to reveal the inner eye just like the metal bill, or can the shoulder compartment open up for you to store weapons or reveal the inner details, and the answer is no, there isn't. So the only gimmicks that there is in the body is the entry plug itself. So in this aspect, it's actually kind of lacking in gimmicks. I was hoping that at least the head can actually open to reveal the inner eyes, but we didn't have that. But the good thing is that we do have the entry plug, because even in this size, they were able to design the entry plug so that we can open up and actually store an actual entry plug inside, and it can close it. Unlike the Dyna Action, even in a 40cm size, they couldn't do that, which is unbelievable. Alright, enough of that. Let's go on with the weapons and armaments. So as you can see right now, here's the weapons and armaments that came with this set. On the top are the flight boosters and also the wing piece for the Unit 2, which we'll put onto the Unit 2 after we go through the weapons. And starting from the left, we have is the Thunder Spear, and then we have the 2 progressive knife next to that, and 2 pellet rifles, and then we have the entry plugs, which we just demonstrated, one shorter one and one longer one, and then finally we have this crossbow. Alright, let's take a look at them in details. Starting off, we have is the crossbow. You can see that majority of it is actually in green, followed by a metallic color that actually acts as the metal components. And then you can also see that there's these holes that I mentioned in the main body as well, to replicate it is actually bolted down. So it's actually looking very detailed. But unfortunately, as much as details as it is, there's actually no gimmicks whatsoever. So there's no firing gimmicks or anything that comes with this crossbow, which is a little sad. Next we have is the pellet rifle, the iconic pellet rifle. Again, similar to the crossbow, overall it's in green color, and then you have these nice metallic coloring on the top and also on the back circle that makes it looks really nice. And of course there are these little dots all around it that replicates the bolts on it. So it's looking really nice and very detailed. But just like the crossbow that we talked about, there's actually no gimmicks on this whatsoever, so this is how it is. Next we have is the progressive knife. Now the progressive knife, there's actually a lot more colorings on it compared to the two weapons that we just talked about. The handle, it's a metallic color followed by an orange coloring on the two sides, and then a light gray as the blade. And you can see that within the blade it's actually hollow, so this is really looking very detailed. But unfortunately I would say that the blade as a gray color, it's somewhat lacking because it doesn't reflect the sharpness of the blade, and I actually prefer it as a shiny silver so that it actually looks more like a blade instead of a toy knife, although it is. So definitely they can actually improve on the coloring on the blade. As for the thunder spear, the coloring is actually totally different from the previous two weapons, but don't worry, it actually follows the anime coloring, so it actually looks exactly the same, and there's actually gimmicks to it. But the overall design on this is actually really plain. As you can see right now, there are actually not much details on it whatsoever. It looks like it's a block of plastic with a little cuts to the sides and edges, and that's it. Very different from the two weapons that we introduced, the pellet rifle and also the crossbow. There are these dots for the bolts and also different colorings that makes it looks really detailed. And here it's just super plain with two different tones of gray, and then you got the battery pack that's in orange, and that's about it. And I must say this is the most disappointing piece out of all the weapons. It's poorly designed and there's no details whatsoever. But there's actually gimmicks unlike the other weapons. I'm not sure if that's the reason why they lack on the details on the overall design, but that's not an excuse. So what can you do? You can pull the spear part out from the top, and then on the back end you can actually pull that out to extend it. Just like that. Very simple transformation. But the battery pack, you cannot pull it out, and it's stuck like that, unlike the metal build which you can actually pull it out. But even with the transformation gimmicks, I must say again, it's very disappointing. There's actually no details. They can definitely do a lot more on this than it is right now. Now lastly are these entry plugs, which we've gone through. Their main purpose is to basically slot into the holes on the back of the Unit 2. Now their colorings are both of them are the same. On the front, it's the orange with these red lines on it, which basically is for the thruster when it ejects out, and then followed by the black and white coloring on the back. The only difference between the two are basically the length, as you can see, and there's actually nothing else. And that's it with the weapons. And yes, we didn't forget the rocket booster, which we'll get into right now. So in order to put the rocket booster on the shoulder and also the wing piece on the side of the arms, simply you have to do this. Pop the shoulder off like this. As you can see, it's actually held by a ball joint, and then choose the right piece for the shoulder. The rocket should go outwards like this, so if it's on the other side then it's wrong. And then you can see that there's a little hole on here that goes to the ball joint on the shoulder, and just simply match it. And then as for this piece, just yank it out. There's actually nothing much to it. And as for this piece, there's actually no difference from what I can tell, other than the fact that on right here, this little piece, it actually writes L and R to differentiate between the two pieces that you're going to put on. So in case that you don't know which one it is, look for this piece right here, and it's written on it. It might be on the other side if you can't find it. So in this case, I'll be using the left right here, and then just basically put it in like so, like that. And we do the same for the other side. So here it is, the Unit 2 Type S Skydive version. Now honestly, I think this mode is actually so much cooler than the original one, maybe because of the booster on the two sides and also the wings that mix it with it. So definitely recommend you guys to display it in this mode. Now putting it on has a little bit difficulties on the shoulders because of the receiving end on the shoulder parts. It's actually pretty tight, maybe because it's new, so it's actually take a little force to put it in there. So just be patient when putting this on. And also be careful not to scratch the yellow part on the arms as well, because it's really easy to scratch onto it. Next we have is the base of the display stand. Now the display stand, there's actually not much. It's just one big plastic piece with little design onto it. But then you have these two umbilical cord plugs. That's one for you to plug it in regularly, and the other one is for you to attach onto the display stand as the connector. And of course the rubber tube for the umbilical cord you can connect to whichever plug that you want. Now the plug for connecting to the display stand, there's actually not as much of details on the coloring as the normal one. As you can see, the handle on the original one, it's actually covered in a dark color, and then it's actually hollow underneath that. While the display one, it's not color and there's no hollow section onto that. And even the connecting parts to the umbilical cord, that's not color as well. But aside from that, it's pretty much the same. In a conclusion, what do I think about this piece? Now this piece is actually really great. Overall the look, it's following the anime movie design, and you get to switch between the normal look and also the Type S skydive version, which is absolutely amazing. You also have tons of weapons that you can play around with, although most of them are actually designed really nicely and very detailed. The Thunder Spear on the other hand, it's actually very lacking. And not only that, we also have the entry plug gimmicks on the main body, which is really great for fans like us to recreate the entry plug section. And also on the thigh, the little gimmicks that you can extend so that it prevents from scratching the other piece is absolutely brilliant. So that's very well done. Now although there's actually tons of things that's very good, one minor thing is that overall, all the joints is actually really tight, just like mine on the left shoulder. The inner ball joint is actually stuck. Even throughout the entire review I've been playing around with it, I still cannot get that to move. So with that, I'll give it a 4 out of 5 for the product itself. Now also a little bit on the cost, it's actually very affordable, so definitely for you guys who are the FF fans, I'm totally recommending this piece for you guys. And that's it for today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it and find it useful. As always, please hit that like button and also subscribe to my channel for more videos. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you for watching.